Hey.
Welcome to another episode of Asking for a Friend. So we're joined here. We do have a special guest, but I'm one of your hosts, Samantha, and we have,
and I'm Aisha,
And I'm Sophia.
and then
Lambert.
we have our guest Lambo. And so, yes, this is going to be a one of our special series.
Yes. So this is a special edition of our Asking for a Friend UG Chick Edition podcast. And then we're going to be discussing raising kids in the diaspora
Yes.
as diasporans.
The cool kids.
Nice.
So let's see. We're putting forward some discussions on what it is to be a woman and to be a young woman in the diaspora in today's world. This is an in-depth conversation that centers around the central theme of what being a woman is. Of course, every woman is unique in their own way, but we share some of the common traits that bring us heartache and some that bring us unexplainable bliss. Join us on this journey as we ask questions, confess things, consult Google and Lambo,
Yes.
all that to just understand what's going on in the world around us.
Yes.
So thank you, Lambert, for joining us.
Yeah,
today.
thanks
Always a
for
pleasure. And
Yes.
I just have to say thank you guys for bringing me back to UG Chick Edition.
I mean, you did all right the first
Yeah.
time, so it was like, I guess we'll bring him back.
You knew it would call you back.
But thank you. Yeah, always a pleasure to be here, hanging out with the ladies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen.
So I think this episode, with everything that's going on, I think everyone knows about like the social issues that are happening in the U.S.
Right.
Specifically regarding race. And I feel like the U.S. we like had Corona, but it's like, hold on,
Everyone
like
forgot
there's
about
no break.
Corona.
Actually, we're gonna have like this social racial protest.
Yeah.
Like you can't even take a break.
No.
So
It's been the longest year already.
I know.
I
And
know.
it's like
Beginning of June.
halfway done. Craziness. But so I think as all of us, we're all, Ugandan Americans, but we all have kids. But we have to, now knowing what's going on right now, we have to think about how we, as I guess our kids are first generation Ugandan Americans,
Yeah.
like how do we talk about them with this racial
Right.
issues that are going
Why
on
would
right
you
now?
call them Ugandan Americans?
What's
I
the
mean,
term
what's the
for
term?
it? Or just Americans?
Just
I
a-
think they're actually African American.
They are.
Now I feel like now we're sticking into
no,
territory.
nah,
Like
yeah.
we're trying
That's
to
how I
be
feel.
allies.
don't
African
think
I
American.
feel
so.
like these kids are actually African American.
Just
So,
because they
so
were
then
born
what
here.
Exactly.
So
Not
then
just
let's-
Americans.
Then they're still
See,
Ugandan
we get
American.
naturalized when you come here.
Yeah.
Right.
You're an immigrant. You
Yeah.
get naturalized. These kids are actually born here,
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So they.
so they're African American.
I mean, I see what you're saying.
I feel
Hold
like
on, hold on.
so then-
What
so
did you
then-
guys
so
think?
then
Yeah.
so then what are African black
Black
American?
Americans and
They are the
So
same-
there would
I mean,
still be
we
black
are
Oh,
all
they're
the
still
same.
That's what he's
African
saying.
American. I guess they're born
Right.
here, but originally from
What
Africa.
So there would
do
be
you-
black
what do you
Americans?
check
No,
whenever you
African
fill out?
Americans.
I think I do
That's
check.
true.
It's
Yeah.
always
You-
black.
What do you fill out?
It's always black.
When you look at the forms from
It's
like,
always
the
black.
city or for the schools.
Yeah.
What do you fill out?
Yeah,
Black.
they say
Race?
African.
It's black.
think
Yeah,
black.
you
it's
do, they don't
African
have a
American,
section for
African
Africans.
We are not
No,
separated.
it's
We are the
black.
same.
It's black,
Exactly.
So black
slash
Americans.
African American.
So our kids are.
It's only
So
So
us
they're saying they're
that came
African
from
American, which
Africa
makes sense.
that can identify because
Right.
we're immigrants. But
Yeah.
these kids, to me, are African American.
So
That's true.
So
That's
what's
a
our
different
term?
perspective. I never thought of it that way.
We're
Us black Americans,
For us, we are Ugandan Americans.
Well, you float, you pick.
immigrants. No, but for real, no, but
Mhm.
we are just Ugandan Americans.
I would think
Ugandans
so.
based in America.
I don't know. I feel like they
Or
call.
are we still African American because now we're naturalized?
That is it.
I don't
Ah.
know. Probably
We are.
African
Huh.
American.
See,
Interesting.
Hey guys, I'm African American.
They will
if you
still,
got to you
they will
just
still
saying
ask
that.
you though, where do you come from anyway? Because now when you say I'm from Texas, I'm African American, they'll be like, no, but the accent.
The
Yeah.
accent.
Right, where are
Right.
you from? That's
Yeah.
true. That's
Yeah.
true. So, all right. So, why do you feel like we should be having a conversation with our Black or African American Ugandan by blood kids? Like, I feel like why should we be discussing race? Because
Yeah.
I feel, let me say this. I feel like being like in a bubble of being in the Ugandan community, like you just see people that look like you, right?
Right.
So then it's kind of like I feel like you take it for granted because I feel like no one ever had a conversation about, oh, when you're in public or when you're in school or when you're looking for a job that you have to present yourself a certain way because you may be perceived as A, B, C, and
Right.
D.
Yeah.
Right.
But I feel like those are conversations we should be having
should.
with our kids
With our kids,
now
yeah.
Yes.
and preparing them, unfortunately.
yeah, for what's out there.
Right.
Because whether we like it or not, whenever they go to school,
Mm-hmm.
it's a different situation. Like I think I had mentioned in the last time that we recorded was that most of the time you would be the only Black kid in class, you know, and other like they have to understand that non-people of color will look at them as, you know, how they would look
Different.
at I don't want to say a regular African American, but as an African American,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So they have to be able to understand that, okay, my parents are from Uganda. I'm Ugandan. I'm also Black, and like there's also this issue going on here. This is how people perceive me.
Right.
So I think we need to have that conversation with them versus them getting to school and then like slowly
Finding
like,
out and coming.
you know,
Right.
Asking questions. Why do they look at my
Yeah.
hair like that?
or them even
You know,
getting
all that.
embarrassed about like what their parents sound like.
The
Sound like,
accents,
or I remember,
yes.
let me
Yeah.
say, low key, I feel like I didn't start appreciating my name until I was older. Only because, all right, so when you go to school in
Right.
like America, you know, they do roll call, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're like going through the list and then
They get to your name and
you already
And
know
it's
it's
like
you.
you already,
It's
you already put up your hand.
That's me.
It's Musoke.
Right.
That's what it is.
Mosoki.
And then I
Is
feel
that how
like you
they
kind of
pronounce
find
it?
yourself Americanizing
Yes.
your name to make it
Yes.
more palatable.
Yeah.
for-
But that's how it is. Like you find yourself even spelling out your name
Yes.
beforehand.
beforehand. Yeah,
Yes.
you're like, oh, last name. They usually ask me, oh, first name Sophia, last name. I don't even say it. I just spell
You
it out.
just spell it out. Yeah.
N for Nancy, A for Apple.
right.
I actually had to catch myself in UG because I automatically started doing it, and the lady looked at me like, "Sis, like, what are you doing?" I was like,
Right.
"Oh
Yeah.
my god, I'm so sorry, Pussy." Because where I come from, I usually it's
I
too
have
much
to pronounce
experience.
your name. Like, yeah. So I don't say my name. I just pronounce it out. I just,
So what do
read
you
it out
think,
for
Lambo?
them.
When I look at it, I feel like it's actually good that our kids do get together with other, African kids. Because to me, I could put myself in these kids' shoes, and you feel like there's a lot of pain they go through.
Right.
You're in school, you're the only Black kid,
Right.
and this is a situation you can't explain. But when you go to other African kids and you see what it feels like to be loved and
Right.
without anybody different from you,
Right.
yeah, it kind of feels good. I grew up in a family where I was the darkest kid, and I kind of relate to what it feels like being that kid. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
because then you feel some type of way when it's something to be done outside. They're like, "Hey, Lambert, you go do that." 'Cause then, you see that kind of thing.
Right.
So, and I've seen this in school. Like when you look at these kids in school, the roles they assign them, how they treat them, and then when your kid messes up, because they are Black and they are the only kid,
Right.
they kind of try to tell, "Oh no, it's okay," but it's like a pitiful kind
Right.
of way of doing it, which is
Yeah.
unfair.
Right.
Treat all kids the
The same,
same and
right.
just be like, "Hey, you can do that,"
Right.
So they feel like, okay,
We are the
I'm the
same.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Treated
so
the same
it's
way.
a tough place in school, and to me, I feel like you gotta love yourself first,
Right.
Right.
and that is something we have to build in children.
In children.
Yeah.
To be
Right.
comfortable in their own
Yeah.
skin.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Much as we want to talk to them about it, it's kind of tricky if you yourself, you
You-
behave
right.
Right.
there's
You have
that
some
too.
biases
Yeah.
of yourself also. So
Yeah.
what age do you think that it's best to start talking to our kids about that? Because you have
Three
three
kids, yeah.
different ages.
I think I first started
Let me
having
pose
that
a question.
yeah.
Is your daughter like so inquisitive? Is
Uh-huh.
she always asking questions?
She once asked me why we are the way we are.
Why our skin
Uh-huh.
color is like that?
Yeah. And I'm
Oh.
like, no, we are
Oh.
African. We come from Uganda. And she's like, oh, so are there white people in Africa? I'm like, yeah, there is some. Okay. So all they want to see is that, okay, I just want to make sure I'm not
Right.
Yeah,
Out of
not
this
too
one, like
different.
how
Yeah.
come
Right.
we-
Yeah.
And once you kind of give them that, then they gain the confidence.
Right.
To me, I also feel like identifying their talents and kind of, strengthening that
Right,
in them
right.
gives them a chance to overcome whatever situation happens in school.
Yeah.
Because then it's kind of crazy if, you're not good at anything. Again, you're black. It's
Yeah.
just.
You feel like you
All right.
kind of.
Let me pose a question. I don't know
Yeah.
if I've seen where parents, I think schools,
Mhm.
ask kids to come to school with either like characters, like book
Like dress up.
character, dress up in something. I wonder if Ugandan parents have come out and dressed their kids in African attires and
Yeah.
go and talk about these Ugandan local books that we have, Luganda books like Nancha and
Right.
Yeah.
Chintu.
Yeah.
Because I have a friend in the UK, she dressed her daughter, I think, with a book, a Luganda book, and that's what she took to school. So I was like, I
Interesting.
wonder how that turned out. Like, did she have to tell the stories from the
Yeah.
book? Like, hey, I come from Uganda, and this is a story they used to tell.
Right.
I wonder how that happens. Because I know most parents do like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Right. Like
It's
the
actually a
American
very
very
good
good
characters.
thing.
Yeah.
My daughter did a presentation on Uganda. We went through
Oh.
it, and it was a special project there at school. It changed the way, when you go pick up kids, you look at how the teachers
expressions.
respond.
Right.
Yeah. So to me, it was something small.
Right.
Because she told me, I just want to do a presentation about Uganda. I want to know a few things. And my teacher told me to put together a slide. So we worked on it about 6 pages. And then, she said, I want to wear something African, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she did that presentation. She appeared on the school magazine.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
It changed
It was
everything
different.
for her because
Yeah.
now every kid is like,
Oh,
so
wow,
yeah.
so
Right.
And
So
then,
they're
is that your
interested.
dad? And now
Yeah.
our neighbor, turns out, I didn't even know they go to the same school. But when she was riding her bike in the neighborhood, she stopped and then they came. She came out and they had a conversation. And the mom was
wow.
there. I'm like, okay. I think there are certain things that
Interesting, yeah.
we have to do to make these guys see that there's
Yeah.
something we do not know.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's
Yeah.
always that perception that okay, you're here and there's not much you're
Back,
just learning
yeah,
our stuff.
yeah.
But then there's something else we also can offer that makes our kids exceptional. Yeah.
That's good.
Good.
Good for her. Good for
Right.
Bri.
That's
Like,
good.
she represented.
That's
good
really
job,
good.
parents. Yeah.
You know, when my kid, I remember she was like maybe 1.5, 2. She was going to daycare. And then she had mentioned that, her teacher is peach.
Like
And
the
then I
color.
was like,
You're like,
the
wait,
color.
what? What that mean?
Like she wasn't white, she was peach because I guess she's like knew her colors. And then she, even when she looked at herself,
Peach.
she said she's not
Yeah.
black,
Oh,
that
wow.
she's brown. Because if you look at a color scheme, like of
Yeah.
course, like we're not black, we're
Yeah.
like shades of brown. And then I guess Caucasian people are shades of peach and
Yeah.
pink and stuff. but I was so shocked because I'm like at that young
At that
age,
age,
it's
like
when
wow.
people, and now I feel like when people are, especially white people, when they're having now to have these racial discussions with their
Yeah.
kids, they're like, oh, we don't see color. But
Right. But
obviously you have to see color.
How
Like
could
even
you
at
not?
2 years old, she saw that,
She
this
saw that color
person
like
is
this.
different from me.
Yeah.
So I think the conversation starts early, even if it's buying a doll, because I feel like, especially in America, like things are centered around Barbie, someone that's
Yes.
blonde
Right.
hair,
Yeah.
blue-eyed, and that's the idea of beauty. And that's what, when they see on TV, they may want
the
a Barbie
blonde,
doll
yeah.
versus like, the brown doll that I don't know, doesn't have it. That doesn't have the same name as Barbie, but I feel like you have to put emphasis on. Oh, this
On
brown doll
both.
is
Yeah.
beautiful too, just like
Yes.
this
Yeah.
blonde-haared doll. So I
Yeah.
think that conversation starts early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. And you kind of build on it from there as you go. Because yeah, I feel like with my brother. Okay, there's also another thing with children that are born here. Like I mentioned, the thing with accents with kids' accents, and they'll differentiate, or their parents' accents, and they'll like differentiate, and they'll be like, "Oh no, I'm American because like I speak like this. I roll my R's and all that stuff, you know." But like our parents like enunciate, and they'll be like, "Well, you're African because you talk like that."
Right.
Right.
You know? So I feel like even just embracing that, even like when it comes down to food, I know for me,
Yeah.
some of us, you know, I'm going to put myself out there on blast. But when I just come, I kind of went through a thing where like I realized very quickly that being African was not on fashion. Like you didn't want to admit that you were African.
That you're African.
You know, you didn't. So at first,
Wow.
I tested it out and I was like, oh, I'm South African. Because now, like, I have two things, right?
Wait.
I don't want to say I'm African because then it'll be like, oh
From
my
where?
God, you're African. And then I say, I'm from Uganda.
Uganda.
Then I have to explain
I mean, and then you have to
where
Right.
Uganda
come
is.
in with that.
So I was like, what's a country that
Everyone knows.
yes. What's a country that everybody knows that I don't really have to like,
Explain
South
over.
Africa. I'm from South Africa. But then I'd still get like looks, you know, like, oh my God. Or like kids didn't want to sit next to me, or like comments about my hair or my accent or whatever. So then I was like, what's a country that people love, and there are a lot of black people, and will explain my accent? Jamaica. I'm Jamaican. I'm
People
Jamaican.
go with Jamaica like
I'm Jamaican.
Rolled with
You
that
rolled with that.
Roll the Jamaica.
would even speak.
No, they don't even.
They don't know.
They
They don't know the difference. They don't know the difference. So I just say I'm Jamaican, and then so like later, I realized I made a Facebook post. Like now I'm like I've graduated and I've come to terms with who I am. But it wasn't
Right.
that I was self-conscious. I was just trying to avoid
fit in.
being
Fit in.
Yeah.
An outcast.
ostracized.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I was trying to avoid being the outcast. So eventually, like when I got to high school and I was like, F these guys, like I'm me, I love where I come from, boo, 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 boo.
Right.
So I graduated and then I made a post about like, oh my country, Uganda, you're so crazy. Blah, blah. I don't know what had happened. And then this guy that I went to middle school with was like, but wait, I didn't comment back.
That's a painful
You're like,
thing.
yeah,
No,
my parents.
it is.
You're like, yeah, my
painful.
parents, my
It is
grandparents are from Jamaica.
I didn't say anything.
I'm just saying.
Because at this point, there was like my friends knew I was African. Most kids in high school knew I was African, but I had started that quickly in middle school because I realized, oh no. And this was honestly whenever I moved to a smaller middle school that was
Yeah.
predominantly white.
Right.
But when I first got here, the middle school that I went to was pretty mixed. There was a large African crowd, so I didn't have to
Explain yourself.
explain myself, you know. But when I moved to this other school, it was like, hey, oh, there's only a few of us. Oh, okay. I'm Jamaican.
That's a painful place to be.
Yeah.
No, I think it's definitely like looking back, and I feel like times have changed so much because like now everyone is like, oh, I'm proud. Like I'm from Nigeria. I'm from
Yeah,
Nigeria. I'm
yeah,
Kenyan. I'm
yeah.
Ugandan. Like
Yeah.
it's like everyone
You
wants
have
to
to
be
be proud
African.
of where
you
like
come
Afro
from,
pop,
yeah.
very like
Yeah.
DeVito. Let me do the. Like I remember
Yeah.
I went on a trip to Mexico last year, and we were just walking, and there's like some little lounge playing Afro pop Nigerian music
Right.
in Mexico.
What?
Yeah. Yes.
Now that's
So I feel like now it's the
Hey,
it thing.
you have to be proud.
When before it was
Yes.
like
it was like, oh, don't even bring
like,
that.
no,
over
mom, I want to
here."
eat mac and cheese. No, I do not want to eat matoke or kawunga again.
Right.
It's like
Statistically, though, we're doing well. I think, we are going to like every part of the world. So
Right.
it's
Yeah,
helping
yeah.
us, and everywhere we go, we're sharing our culture.
Right.
It's different now. I don't know if you guys saw that post of that lady. that woke up one morning and her accent had totally changed.
Oh my God!
Yes.
Yes.
Made a big deal about
Yes.
it. I don't know how she pulled it off because
Yes.
she
She had
really
an
nailed
accent.
it.
Like every time
yeah.
they interviewed her, the same
She
An
was
accent.
really
accent
put
of
it on.
like
British.
what happened?
I think British
Yeah,
accent.
she
Oh,
just,
I thought she said it was an
but
but
American
she didn't travel.
accent.
She
What
hadn't
accent
She
did
had
they
never
have?
traveled.
No, yeah,
She woke up. She said God does amazing things, you
Right.
guys. God does.
Yeah, she actually I like
Believe
that.
us.
She
God said,
Mm.
I wish I could.
Yeah, she
I feel
just
like she said it was an American accent.
no, it was a
American?
British.
Oh, it was
accent.
British?
Yeah, she woke up and
God does amazing things.
so they
Good.
called her for an interview,
Uh.
and they were asking her, "So, how did you find out about She's like she
She's
slept
like, me, I
and
prayed.
Woke
That's
up.
how good God
God
is. Yeah, she
is.
woke up one morning and her accent.
And
was
she
Blessed.
didn't, yeah, she didn't realize the accent had changed until her brother or cousin called her, and he's like, "Oh, Victoria, your
Yeah.
accent changed."
Something like that. Yeah, but it's the reverse now. There's just a few people that are trying to be that way. A lot of us, the pride to be African
Right.
is continuously growing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Can
and
we try to find her and see if she still has the accent? Or
maybe God took it back. I don't know.
No, I feel like definitely, especially more so than when I was younger, I feel like even amongst our kids that there's this desire to know about
Where we're
Africa,
from.
where
Yeah.
they're from, and
Yeah.
what. So I feel like that's good. I feel like that in terms of what's going on right now, I feel like it makes you more with them when they're older, makes them more of an advocate to know who they are, where they're from,
Yes.
and
Yes,
fight
yes.
for that,
Right.
and
Right.
say that that's a positive. It's like it's
Right.
nothing to be ashamed about.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's also key to let our viewers and everybody that's watching, if you haven't been to Africa, if you know nothing about the African culture, you gotta go visit Africa.
yes.
Yeah.
It will
Exactly.
change your mindset. It will change everything you
Yes.
hear out here about Africa. When you
Yes.
go down there, you're gonna love it. A very interesting continent, with a series of interesting
Yes.
countries. You gotta go
Yes.
to Africa, check it
Yeah.
out. You will love it.
Africa.
Yeah,
Each one has something different to offer.
Yeah.
So pick
Yep.
a country and go.
and go.
Come to
Yeah.
Uganda first.
So do you guys feel like being being African, that aspect makes it easier to talk about race issues with your kids?
You know, I feel like it doesn't, because I feel like when you look at Africa, it's more of a it's practically one race for the most part. Like
Yeah.
maybe not Northern Africa, but for the most part, like the majority of people are black. Like there's not like America where there's multiple races. Like you're
Yeah.
having to like deal with
So different groups of people.
different groups
yeah.
of people, their history, how did they get here, like all these the systemic discrimination based just solely
Right.
on race. So I feel like maybe us as Africans maybe haven't been as sensitive, and I think also maybe not as sensitive to the Black struggle in America until it actually hits you
Yes.
Yes.
yourself.
Right, yeah.
Because I feel
Yes.
like sometimes like we're like, oh, for me, I know where I come from. I'm
Yes.
Ugandan.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah.
I know my generations back. Like, I know my ancestry. But then,
Right.
like, I think what we talked at the last podcast, like, when you still pulled over, no one is
Yeah.
like,
no one is
Right.
like,
checking
Yeah.
on your
oh, but
forehead.
you,
Actually,
it's okay.
you know, you're from such and
I
such
got
place.
the accent,
Yeah.
so it's cool.
Right.
You can go. Like, no.
No, you're treated just like every
Just like
Black
the same,
American.
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
feel like even as Africans, we're learning to join forces with
Yes.
Black Americans and realize
Right.
we
Yeah.
have the same struggle.
And I feel like in some instances we're also like learning that, oh, like this actually exists, like in different ways that it exists, whether it's systematic or, you know, education, like different little things like that, or when somebody is like being prejudiced towards you. Because I think that's a struggle that African Americans have had to deal with from when they're young. I feel like their parents talk to them about that when they're
Right.
young, you know, but because I think you had mentioned there was a coworker of yours who felt like, oh, was it you? Somebody had mentioned that there was a coworker who, like, they were having this discussion, and she said that, you know, at 6 years old, like, somebody was, you know, like, being prejudiced or racist towards her, you know, at 6.
At 6.
You know, I feel like we have 6-year-olds in our group.
Racism
Right.
is
You know, and
taught.
I don't know
Yeah.
if we've, like, had that conversation with them or if they've experienced that. Because, like, at 6, like, it could be another kid, and that kid could be learning from their parents. But I think that they might not even know what they're saying. But at the end of the day, like, your kid picks up on that,
Right.
you know. And if that conversation hasn't started, they might not even know to like come and talk to you about that, or tell you like this and this happened and how to handle it going forward. I think you had the producer Richard and I were talking about bullying earlier, and I was like, yeah, like, I want my son to come and tell me like this person did this, and this person did this, and this person did this, because, and he was like, well, like, maybe like that might, like, people might look at him like he's tattletelling. And I was like, I would rather that my child comes and tells me every single thing that happens, because then I can tell them like, hey, because there are bullies in the world from whenever you're young, all the way to whenever you get older.
Right. Even at older age, people
are gonna bully you. So teaching them how to handle situations like that, whether it's bullying in the form of like, you talked about my hair or the way that I talked, or so you said something to me that made me feel bad about who I am.
Right.
You know. Wait, I feel like I lost my train of view. Like, that was such a long-winded point.
But now that you brought up like bullying in school, I feel like Africans, a lot of us are like passive in a sense. So I feel like a lot of us are taught like, do what they tell you to do.
Just
like,
do what they tell
walk
you.
the straight and narrow. Don't like rock the boat.
Yeah.
But then you say your kid comes and it's like, hey,
this person
so and so said this and this about my hair.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like black parents would be like, no, we're going to the school
who did what?
Right.
Oh, we need
but
the
I feel like
parents'
as
number.
Africans, we're just
like, hey, but did you play nice?
What did
I
you
wanted
do?
to ask, like, you know, when we were back in Uganda, I wonder whether bullying, was it like a big deal when we were in school?
Bullying was like hazing.
I think it was like they bully you, but you go for it. Like, you go for it.
It was part of boarding
school.
Well, if you went to boarding school,
I went to boarding
school.
Life. Yeah.
But
so parents were never really bad.
Yeah, spoiled.
Yeah. That's what I feel like. So African parents, you know, like
in
America, I feel like it's all about emotions, right? And like now you have to teach your kid like to stand up for themselves. And like, but in Uganda, like,
it's not just in Uganda. You stand up for yourself on your own. Oh, they talked about your hair.
It's okay.
Let's cut it off.
And actually, there's also a thing with, okay, maybe Africans, but I'm going to say Ugandans specifically, us and our natural hair. So we'll be trying to perm our kids' hair quickly and soon, maybe partly to avoid those types of issues, maybe. I don't know. But I feel like if it's natural hair, it's like, you have kaweke, like that. It's like, maybe you partly deserve that because your hair is just like all messy. But I feel like we don't have like that, like hair love. You know, maybe things are changing. I do see a lot more
cutting
natural
our hair in
that's
school.
true.
They said it's easier to maintain.
Yeah.
You're not going to waste your time in the dormitory trying to knot your hair.
Yeah.
So it was easier to
just cut it off.
Yeah.
That's so
and
true.
I did until I think my whole high school.
So Lambert, would you go up to the school if someone was like, so your kid comes back and is like,
somebody
Dad,
said
someone
this
said
about my skin.
What would you do?
Go back
That's
to
a tricky
go
one.
back to
I usually try and report it to the teacher, and I don't think they take action. I really don't think. Now, I don't think I would also go the extra mile of actually going to look for
the parents.
the parents confront them, because then you kind of start up. I don't know. That's how I feel.
Right.
Yeah. And I try to teach my kids to be more responsible, more understanding, and, more compassionate. But it kind of puts them in a bad place.
Right.
And, we had a similar discussion like last weekend. And, everyone was talking about, having your kids kind of, be obedient, listen to
whatever they tell them to do.
But then if your kids are the only ones doing that and others are doing other
Right.
things and getting away with it, then it's so unfair,
Right.
But then, it's all these are morals. To me, I still think.
I think to us, it's always like, remember where you come from.
It goes way back.
Our parents keep reminding us, Biago child, remember where you come from. In Luganda, man, in Nakuyo.
It's that simple.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
So
So what lessons have you guys maybe even like I guess through your school years, like what lessons have you picked up on that you hope to give your kids to help them carry on through life, especially like right now? Like, is there anything that you've learned in this time as
In this
things go on
time.
that you're like, like I'm definitely gonna have to like teach my kid that. Hopefully that helps them in the future.
I feel like one thing I would teach is that you don't have to be liked by everybody. I feel like it's rather it's better to stand up
and be
for,
yourself.
right, stand up for
For the
yourself or
right.
stand up for something
Yes.
versus what do they say, falling
for
Yeah,
everything.
falling for
Yeah.
yeah, because I feel like you don't have to make people comfortable. I feel like that's one thing, because I feel like a lot of the time we're just like,
thank you.
oh, instead of being like, no, I don't like the way you said that, even if it's at work, I feel like you can demand to be, I don't know, necessarily respected, but you can demand, I guess, respect.
Yeah,
Respect.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you
Like
don't have
see
to
me,
sit it.
like see me,
Right.
like
Right.
I'm here.
Right.
Yeah, you're
Listen
not
to
gonna
me,
push
yes,
me around.
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I also think like this, our kids need to learn to understand the word no, that there's going to be a time you can say no.
And
Right.
it's
Because
okay.
I feel like the school system doesn't favor that.
Right.
This guys, it's like all teachers are so afraid. So,
Right.
everything they kind of try to say yes. Oh, yeah, we'll do it. It's okay.
Right.
Yeah, so they're used to getting it easy.
Right.
Because the teachers are afraid to, have a confrontation with
Right.
a kid or have a parent look at them as a bad teacher.
Right.
So with that, you get kids that, are kind of thinking everything is supposed to come easy.
Easy,
So like
yeah.
when they come home and you
Entitlement.
tell them, hey, no, I'm not getting you this. And then
Right.
they go all one.
Yes.
And you're like, hey, hold on.
Right.
You're not going to get everything you ask for. No,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah. So I feel like if you harden their emotions that way, they're able to come out, overcome those challenges that come their way as they grow up.
Yeah.
That's
I know.
how
I feel like that's with parenting. I feel like that's kind of like a tightrope. Is, of course, I feel like maybe a lot of us are in a better position than how we were raised, right? And you always
Yeah.
want to provide more for your kids than what was given to you. Like, you always want to pass forward. Like,
Yes.
even
More.
the generation after me, like, hopefully my daughter will be able to provide more for her kids than I've been able to provide for her. But then I feel like that leads almost to like an entitlement.
Entitlement,
Yeah.
like-
Because then
It
how
does.
do you still instill like hard work, like earning something versus like, even though maybe I can afford to get it to you, but that's not
mean
the
like
point.
it's going to be
Right.
provided
Yeah.
anytime you ask,
Yeah.
oh, mommy, I
Right,
need this, it will be there.
Yeah.
I
Right.
think they need to learn that, hey, you're not going to have everything you need
Right.
in this life.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's hard work and stuff to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's gotta come also to us, because then I guess we'll discuss this another time, where one parent is so focused on this and the other parent is laxed. And then you have a kid that's playing both
Both
of you.
sides.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
And
Yes.
the kids are very smart
Yes.
about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
They'll
Yes.
see that, oh, dad is so big headed.
Yes.
He never
Yes.
gives
let
in.
me-
Yeah.
right.
Let me
I'll
go
stick
over
with
here.
mommy and,
Right.
they
Yeah.
still get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parents, we need to be a team.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Right?
I agree. Yep.
Kids are smart these days.
I used to do
They'll
that.
come and
They've
tell
been
you,
smart all
Daddy,
along.
mommy
They've been
said
smart
it's
all
okay
along.
to do this. Oh, okay. Next thing you know, they're like, we didn't agree on that.
Yep.
Me, I had my formula. I would tell y'all what it was, but I definitely played that game for sure. But I think I would definitely teach my kids probably the same thing, like
Yeah.
to be steadfast in who you are, knowing, I mean, definitely like knowing your history and knowing the history of the country that you're in, not the history that you're taught, not the
Yeah.
history that you're taught in school,
Right.
but kind of, I think also us as parents, like we have to be aware of what they're being taught. Because to be honest with you, a lot of what I've learned about Black history, American history has been outside of school. It's been like when something happens and I research it and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I
Right.
Didn't know that.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
And then you realize how like whitewashed the
Right.
history is here, and making it more comfortable for other people.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like I feel like it's we would raise more well-rounded children if they understand, like, okay, I come from here and like this is the history over there, and
Yeah.
I
Right.
live here and this is the history here.
Here.
For this place.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like they would be able to understand, how to navigate themselves through life a little bit better, and of course be able to do the same thing of like demanding respect and being unapologetic, walking into a room
Yeah,
and owning
and
it
you
and
own
knowing
it.
that like
Right.
you deserve to be here.
Right.
Yes.
No one has given you anything. You deserve
You
to
deserve
be
to
here.
be there.
You are
Yes.
seen,
Yeah.
and
Right.
like you're loved. Period.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Yes. All right, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to another classic show
Yes.
of the African American.
Go for it. Call it African.
How do I always?
You've already changed.
I know, but how do I always manage to mess up the end? Welcome to another classic show.
Yeah.
Oh, I said welcome.
You said welcome. Like we
Goodbye.
are done. Goodbye.
Finally. Bye.
Thank you for
Lambo.
tuning
Thank you
in.
so much.
Thank you, Lambo.
Thank you, guys.
All right, y'all take care.
All right.
Bye.
Deuces.
Bye.